the goodbye theme on our last show of the season. But I'll tell you what, to have the next guest on our last show of the season is I always look forward to our conversations. And of course, that means I'm welcoming in the play-by-play voice of the Edmonton Stingers, of course, the Alberta Golden Bears and Pandas. That's Doug McLean. Doug, good morning. Thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Great to have you on. Let's start with the Stingers, Doug. They had one thing I think that has been a bit surprising about this year's Stingers team is I think they've built a reputation and a bit of a tradition as being one of the stronger defensive units in the CEBL over their 8+ year history. That really doesn't seem to be the case this season. They seem to be struggling to find a defensive identity. Now, the other night they won 112-108 or 106 victory over the Mamba in Saskatoon. Phenomenal offensive night with multiple 20+ point games from players. But let's touch first. Why don't we do this? Talk about that game and the victory, and then let's get into the defense and what the Stingers are doing to address some of their defensive deficiencies.
Yeah, I mean, a huge win over Saskatoon for sure, and coming off 3 straight losses where they couldn't score to save their lives, let alone defend, to come in and put up, it was 115-108, so to put up 115 against Saskatoon, was a nice way to get themselves back on track a little bit. Nick Hornsby with a huge night, double-double. I think he had 25 points, 11 assists, and 6 or 7 rebounds. So he's kind of, as he's made his way back, now playing, I think that's his 4th game back after being in Indonesia. So a nice performance by them on that front. And again, to try to keep pace, I mean, they've got a bit of a lead on Calgary, who just had an awful season down south with only 1 win. But Calgary's not that far behind the Stingers, and with the new playoff format, top 4 on each side go through, and the top teams in the West are starting to pull away from where Edmonton's at. So they needed that victory over Saskatoon for sure. On the defensive side, it's been a bit up and down. They've had some nights this season where they're keeping teams under 80, under 85 points. It's there, it's within them. But this team on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, the hustle side, whatever metric you want to use, they have not been able to put 40 minutes together virtually all season long. And I think there are lots of reasons for that, but it's been a real up and down season, and no better explanation than 3 straight losses, and then you show up and you put up 115. So it's just been one of those years, and sitting at 4-7, they're not in a great spot. They're not in a terrible spot, but they need to get going at this midway point.
And maybe this will be the game that gets them going, because those are elite scoring numbers. Along with Nick, talk about the other players that were so effective the other night.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll be honest, I did not get a chance to see the game. I was actually out in Vancouver doing a little bit of soccer stuff, so I'm sort of catching up a bit too. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to focus a little bit on Hornsby just because I brought him up, and I think he's just so central to this team and those numbers. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there was a big deficit. They were down big in the first quarter and then bounced back, and that's also been a trait of this team this year as well, where they'll get down early and then they find ways, especially in the second quarter, to bounce back. We've seen that here in Edmonton multiple times, and so again in Saskatoon the other day, finding ways to get back in the game. So it's within them to do that. And a guy like Hornsby just makes such a difference because, and you've watched him a lot too. I mean, he's just that guy that can bring you so many different elements, whatever you need on a given night. I mean, his classic stat line is 12, 13 points, 7, 8 rebounds, 5, 6 assists. And he does that almost like clockwork every night. And that's his career stat line with the Stingers, basically. So for him able to step in and do that and just provide a bit of stability. Scotty Lindsay struggled. He came in hot, shot the ball extremely well, was actually leading the league in 3-point shooting for a stretch. He's now down to 36%. He can't find anything from long range and shot a little bit better against Saskatoon, but still not finding that consistency there. So they're going to lean on a guy like Hornsby a little bit, I think, right now to not be the guy that has to produce those kind of numbers every night, but just to kind of guide them through this stretch where it, again, for the last 3 weeks, it has been a bit of a mess, to put it lightly.
Well, and I think too, just to build off of the role that Nick has with this team. He has that Swiss Army knife personality on the court where he does everything reasonably well, and then to have a particular night like this where he has a special night offensively with 25. That's a huge lift, and really what the team needed in terms of leadership to get them over that hump of scoring deficiencies that they've been battling, as you point out correctly. Now, I think, Doug, the Mamba are going to come into Edmonton next, if I'm not mistaken, certainly with revenge on their mind, but also is this going to be a new pattern for the Stingers where they're going to be able to find a variety of players who can put up big numbers? Here's my question to you. Is that what it's going to take for the way this team is constructed to be able to win? In other words, on most nights, are they just going to have to flat out score their opponents as opposed to be able to lock them down defensively?
Well, that's a really, really good question. And I don't know that I have a great answer because it's just hard to know night to night what you're going to get. And so, yes, I think it's a team that on the offensive side of the ball, there's no question they don't have that go-to score. You and I have talked about this before. I mean, to me, it's the mentality as you build a team. It's 10 seconds left. We're down by 1. You need to know where the ball is going. Doesn't mean that player has to get it, but you need to know where that ball should go because you want the other team to think that's where the ball is going. They don't have that guy right now. They don't have a player where you can say, yep, that's where I want the ball to go to give ourselves a chance to get that bucket with 10 seconds left. So they don't have that right now. So it's going to be a combination of Hornsby and Scotty Lindsay and Baz Davis Jr., who I think has been a nice addition for them. Trey King has been a nice addition for them too. But the challenge is those guys are they're not all the same player, but they're going to give you basically the same stat line every night. Like you're getting good mix of, I was looking at the numbers just before I came on. They're all in around 12, 13 points a game, 5 to 7 rebounds a game. Like they're all kind of the same in that sense. And that's not bad. You need that. Having that depth is huge. But they just don't have that top end guy. So to your question, will they have to outscore teams? I don't know, because there have been nights where they've been excellent defensively and where they've been able to take the pain away. Isaac Jack, a young player who's coming into his own a little bit and has actually really shown some good strides in the last couple of weeks, played for Dave Smart at Pacific. And again, not that I'm saying he's a guy that's going to be a massive, massive key to this, but he's a big body. He's a 7-footer. They can stick in the middle of the floor, who can start to take that, take the rim away a little bit and build defensively not around him, but around a player like that who gives you some versatility. So there are nights where they're very good defensively, but it's just that night to night, you don't know what you're going to get, who you're going to get it from. And so there are going to be nights where they beat Montreal, not quite a month ago, 98-78. Montreal's a really good team in the East. They came in here and smoked the Stingers shortly thereafter. They gave under 80 points to that Montreal team. But then their nights they're giving up. Again, they gave 108 to Saskatoon the other day. Saskatoon's come on. They played better, had a tough start. Anyway, it's a rambling answer to your question because I don't know that I have a good answer because, again, night to night, it's just tough to know what this team's going to give you.
But I think, Doug, the CEBL, and this, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. It is a bit of a rambling league in general because teams come together in such a short period of time before the season starts. If they start making personnel swaps, that also affects the ability of a team to develop chemistry. Then as the season goes on, key players might be off to NBA tryouts. This certainly happened to the Stingers. You got Summer League just around the corner. You kind of have to you have to have a stable front office organization, and then you have to be able to manage on the move and move along. Plus then add in just the basketball reality of every game has different matchups. So one night Jack might be phenomenal as a 7-footer and against certain teams. And then another night he's probably not the right fit for playing 25 minutes. Because the other team, the matchups just don't make sense. So you really do have to manage on the fly, don't you?
Yeah, I 100%. And I think that brings up a really good point, because I think if you look at the Stingers' evolution since 2019, I think they have been one of, if not the most stable franchises over that span, but also within each year. You go on the transaction wire on the CEBL website and you'll see players in and out and come and go. And to your point, exactly, that's what this league is somewhat built around. For the most part, the Stingers have avoided that. And they haven't, not that they haven't brought players in as the season's gone on. That happens. And again, you lose players. They lost Dane Danger, but an outstanding start to the season. He had some NBA workouts. So at least for the moment and maybe for the season, it is gone from the Stingers. But for the most part, they've avoided that. They've been able to build a nucleus year in, year out. And then if you need to add a little piece here and there, you do that and off you go. This year's maybe been a bit different. They bring in Isaiah Moore, really, really talented player, played in Ottawa before this season. But chemistry is a big thing. And it was clear there was a massive lack of chemistry with him on this roster. And I don't think it's a coincidence that their play dipped when he arrived here. A player that, was noticeably having engagements with his own teammates on the floor, constantly on the officials, keeping himself out of, how many 4-on-5s we saw going the other way because he was back, on the floor kind of whining about what had just happened. That we haven't seen that kind of situation from the Stingers a lot. They've avoided that. They've had great chemistry. They've had great character. And because they've built a team from the start of the season, and other than adding little bits here and there, they've kind of moved forward. That was a bit of a break from the norm, and they released him. He lasted 5 games, and he's actually re-signed in Ottawa. And I think they had to make the move. They had to, because you could see it on the floor, the challenges that were going on, players deferring to him, the issues that I just talked about. So not to entirely pick on him, but I think it's an example where they went outside of what they've normally done, which is that stable, consistent roster in a season, went outside it, and it didn't work.
Well, and the fact that they recognized it, acknowledged it, and then made the adjustment to it, because having a cancer, and that's a pretty cruel word to attach to a particular player, but it certainly seems to a certain extent to fit that situation as you described it. If you leave it, it just grows. It doesn't get better. And so they made the adjustment. That certainly is not the kind of character or kind of chemistry that Coach Baker would want to develop. Final question for you, Doug. We're almost at the halfway point of the season. Is there a trend in the league this year that you have noticed that's a bit unique or maybe a bit different from other years? That's a tough one.
That's a good question. Yeah, no, that's a good question, though. I think, I don't know. One thing I'll touch on, I'm not sure it's a trend, but I think we're seeing the sort of super team development happen a bit, where we've seen that before, but it hasn't always worked. And, we've seen Vancouver come in here. We've seen Scarborough come in here. I will be with all due respect to Winnipeg, who is a good roster too, I'll be very surprised if we don't see Vancouver and Scarborough in the final. I just think those two teams, because of that sort of super team piece that they built in, Miles Powell, former Philadelphia 76er, Seton Hall star, has been outstanding for them. Mitch Creek gets added to what was already a stacked Vancouver roster.
And Mitch Creek is a difference maker. He's a difference maker.
He's just a complete, he's going to put up 28, 30 a night. He's built like a tank. And that was already a really, really good roster. So I'll be very surprised if those two teams aren't in it. So that's sort of that super team development. Even Winnipeg a little bit. Teddy Allen.
Yes.
Xavier Moon is there, hasn't played yet, despite the fact he's been in Winnipeg for about 10 days, has not yet played for the Sea Bears. So they've tried that a little bit as well, this sort of super team idea. So I'm not sure that's a great answer to your question. It's a bit of we've seen that happen. So it's been something that's worked, but that's happened before. Maybe it hasn't worked. I think it's starting to work now for some of these teams. They're finding enough answers with these big pieces that they're bringing in, and it's starting to pay dividends. So I'll be curious how that plays out to what we talked about before, that transaction element year to year, within season, if it changes and teams start to look a little differently about how they construct their rosters and adapt them over the course of the year.
It's going to be interesting as we go into the second half of the season. So, well, thank you, Doug, for sharing that. Tell our listeners when the next game is here at home.
Yes, the Stingers are home tomorrow afternoon against Saskatoon. You'll hear Grayson Knutson and Kira Lyons on that call. I'm not doing that one. And also Wednesday, it'll be Grayson, not Kira. I'm not sure he's doing it Wednesday with Grayson, but that's against Calgary. So 2 very winnable games. They need that because then they got 4 straight against Vancouver and Winnipeg. So 2 top teams in the West. Stingers need to get something done here in these next 2 and then see if they can get some answers against 2 really tough teams later in the month.
And before we go, we just had Dave Drabiak from the Alberta Basketball Association on, and great interview, great discussion about the Alberta Basketball Hall of Fame. Thanks to you, Doug, of course, to Brian as well, but for all the work that you personally have done to make the Hall of Fame in the Alberta Basketball Association in the province of Alberta become a reality.
Well, thanks for that. And I mean, I think way more credit needs to go to Dave and Brian and the whole committee of people that knew all kinds of interesting names and people that I didn't know about. And but no, Dave and Brian are putting in just tons and tons of work to pull this thing together. And I'm happy to do my small little part to chip in and make it a reality, because I think it's a great thing. And you obviously have done a ton of work to bring basketball to life here in this province, and among many others. And it's nice to have those names and people recognized and to build it now and to see some of the additional names that will come through in the next couple of years. Fantastic work, Doug. Doug McLean, thanks so much for joining us today. When you get back in the microphone, behind the microphone, looking forward to hearing your calls. Thanks for joining us here on Hoop City. Doug McLean. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Doug McLean joining me here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Ryan Wolstat from the Toronto Sun. Just wrote a great article about the Toronto Raptors and their draft picks, and we're going to pick Ryan's brain about what's next for the Raptors in this offseason. Theme of our music today is saying goodbyes. Ryan Wolstat, I mean, normally when I have you on, something Earth, Wind, and Fire, Rolling Stones, not Sarah McLachlan. But we're a little bit of a melancholy theme today because this is our last day of the season. We're going to take a break. Welcome.
Yeah, nice to be here. Yeah, switching it up. Sometimes more upbeat, maybe some Wu-Tang, but Sarah McLachlan, good Canadian. There you go.
Absolutely, one of the best, that's for sure. Ryan, the Raptors this week, of course, participated in the NBA draft. As is seemingly to be the pattern that the Raptors have, is when they make a draft selection, and I think it's fair to say last year with Murray Boyles, as well as that turned out, this year, same sort of reaction of like, okay, I guess the player's pretty good, but it certainly wasn't a splashy first or second round pick. But talk about the players and talk about what they very well might bring to this Raptors mixture.
Yeah, I just think these guys, they really have their types. And
yes.
They do. Some people, when they date, they only date the same type. When the Raptors draft, they kind of only, they have what they want and they stick with it. That sort of way works for franchises like the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder over the years. They've been a little pickier than a lot of other franchises, and you can't really argue with the results. And I think, like you said off the top, every year people seem to be like, what? This pick? What is going on here? But I mean, most years they seem to pan out. So I don't think you can really say these guys don't know what they're doing or really freak out too much about it, because time and again, especially the last few years, like they've been hitting on all these guys. So the thing I don't get is kind of like it's just the duplication over and over again, and,
yes.
and kind of like going for singles and doubles instead of like taking a swing is what sometimes I'm like, you do need solid rotation players, but at some point, if you're not a marquee franchise that is going to attract, that guys are going to be lining up and saying, hey, I want to go to Toronto, you're not that franchise. So at some point you have to take some swings. And I just think a guy like LeBaron Phil in particular, that guy goes lottery every other draft except this really deep draft. And maybe you take a swing at a guy that you really need. But like I said, I mean, they know what they're doing. It's perplexing is a word I've been using to describe it a little bit.
Well, I agree with you, because like you said, these guys know what they're doing. And the players, like when you look back at everybody was, I think the main idea at the Scotty Barnes selection was they were going to take Jalen Suggs. They were saying, how can you not take Jalen Suggs? I mean, what a phenomenal player, great run with Gonzaga. But they took Scotty Barnes. I mean, what a great selection that was. Now, is this Scotty Barnes or not? Out of the gate, you'd say probably not. Colin Murray-Boyles last year, I mean, he's going to be a real good utility player for this Raptors team. Tough, hard-nosed, does all the dirty work. You got to love that. But swinging for the fence, yes. That becomes an issue at some point once again because you still, Scotty's all-star level player, but he's not an elite scorer. And Ingram is an acquired taste. Those are my words. But how do you see these two players? Are they going to both be vying for some playing time this year? What gaps do they fill for the Raptors? Or are we really going to seriously have to look at what the Raptors do in the trade market now, in the free agent market, to try to reconfigure this lineup to take it from a 46-win team to the next level?
Well, there's certainly work to be done. The problem is you don't have the space under the luxury tax to do it. You want to keep Sandro Mamukelashvili, but I just don't see how that happens unless you move a guy like Grady Dick for nothing, basically, into cap space, and you clear up the money. That's what's going to take to bring back Mamu, because right at the stands right now, they don't have enough money to do it with what he's going to get out there. And I think Alan Graves does replace some of what Mamu does. Like, he's a big that can shoot it. He rebounds. He can, put it on the floor a bit because he grew up as a point guard until he had a huge growth spurt, and Sandro Mamukelashvili can do all those things as well. I think Graves is projected as a better defensive player eventually. So, but how many rookies are going to step in? I mean, Colin Murray-Boyles obviously did it last year, but it's pretty rare for a rookie to step right in. That said, I think the plan right now is they're assuming Jakob Poeltl is going to be healthy and it's going to start, and that what Bobby Webster said to me and what he said to others is he really wants to see CMB and Graves just wreaking havoc off the bench, assuming everyone's healthy. And that's interesting. So I think he could step in. Jaden Bradley, the second-round pick, is interesting as well because this is a guy that was a big-time recruit out of North Carolina. He was a five-star recruit, really, really highly touted. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out for him at first at the first school he went to, but then I think it was Alabama. But once he got to Arizona, he just kept getting better and better. And he's another one of these guys they really like that just wins basketball games. He helps you do a lot of things. Like, he's a role player very similar to Jamal Shed. Like, they're a little bit different because Shed's a better defender and Bradley's probably ahead of him offensively. But they just like guys that they really like. I think they went 32-3, lost to Michigan in the semifinal. And Bradley was a big part of it. So I think they're kind of getting a competition there of these guys like Chucky Hapford, Jamal Shed, and Jaden Bradley that really make it tough on opponents that get after it, just try to attack and have some athleticism and are just really good people and teammates. And that's obviously when we go back to me saying like taking some swings. I think also they really prioritize being good guys and good teammates, and that gets back to like maybe not taking a swim on a guy that might be a little dicier in that regard, but really, really talented. And sometimes I just think they might play it a little too safe, but I think they end up getting guys that are NBA players, which is the whole point. But like, as we said, at some point you want them to try to do a little more than that.
Ryan Wolstat from the Toronto Sun is joining me. Paul Sir here on Hoop City with Josh Fenwick. Ryan, now let's get the rumors are flying all over the league on a whole variety of different players and franchises. One of them is that the Spurs and the Raptors are interested in Kawhi. Snowball's chance, or is this just one of those idle gossip things that just happen all the time in the off season?
Look, when they first were connected to Kawhi Leonard years ago, I thought there's no way this guy's going to come to Toronto. Like, this is insane. And then I was proven wrong. And maybe I could be again, but I wouldn't go as far as it would be insane to think it could happen like last time. But it's very, very unlikely. Like, I covered them pretty closely that year. He was, he did his job. He was basically a mercenary. He got paid, he did the job, he won his title, and he was out. He played half the games, whatever. Like, he didn't really enjoy being outside in Toronto weather. Like, he's the guy that said garage to garage is all he does. Like, he goes from one garage to the other and never really goes outside. Yep. I think that a guy who desperately wanted to go back to California, has all his roots there, all his family there. Do I think he'd want to come back? No. Do I think it makes sense to say that he would want to? Yes, because he wants to stay in California. And so I just think, it's a lot of people don't like just saying, it's leverage, throwing it out there. But I just don't see how it couldn't be. I do get that, he has a good relationship with Alex McKechnie, the head medical guy in Toronto who helped him, who did the load management thing so well. And he'd be comfortable here because he's been here. But it just seems like highly, highly unlikely. I mean, if I'm the Raptors, you can get him for, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick in the first. Sure, I would take that bet despite his health issues because, like you kind of said, Ingram's not for everyone, and he's probably not really for me either. But if it's going to take a little more than that, I wouldn't even go for it if it even is a possibility.
Well, and the fact that Ingram was for the most part healthy last season, that's encouraging. He's not a guy that I think people gravitate towards. But he can be that guy late in the shot clock that you can go to and he can create his own shot. And without him, I don't think Scotty has as easy a time doing that. So having that as a weapon or someone like that is really going to be important for the Raptors this year. Look at the Eastern Conference for just a second. Now you've got Giannis down in Miami. That to me is going to be really interesting. A, can he stay healthy? B, who in the world is going to shoot a three down there at the present time? But I think the real, now that is done, the real intriguing situation in the East is Jaylen Brown and the Celtics. And here's my question. It seems so odd to me that after the season the Celtics had, largely due to Jaylen Brown, that there is a rift. Now, this may very well be because the Celtics prefer Tatum. When Tatum came back and seems to be healthy and seems to be set up for being back as a full-time player coming up, that Brad Stevens is saying, you know what? If I got to pick my guy's Tatum. And let's see what value we can get for Jaylen. But this is like 2 and 3 years into it. It just seems like an odd, un-Celtic-like, un-Brad Stevens-like dynamic.
Yeah, I feel like he's that's very proud and very confident and doesn't think there's any difference between himself and Jason Tatum. I don't think many people agree. Like, I think Jason Tatum, when he's healthy, is a pretty clear fringe MVP guy, like first-team All-NBA caliber player. And I think Brown is like a second ballot guy, like close but not quite there. Like he's like a 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th best guy in the league versus like 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. So it's a slight gap, but there is a bit of a gap. Like he's not quite as good in most people's opinion, but he carries himself like he is. And I think his point is, look what we did this year. Everyone thought we were going to be absolutely stink, and we were really good again. And for the most part, I'm the main reason why. And he's always kind of had to play second fiddle, and he's also a different kind of guy. Like he's done some Twitch stuff here and there that gets him in trouble. And he made the comment, I think, that this was his favorite season ever. And even though they won the title a different season, your favorite season because you were the guy. And it's kind of weird. So I just think they just figure a split's going to come at some point. So, might as well be now. And I get it if it's pretty honest, which almost happened. But if you're going to have to settle for something a lot less, then that's where it gets pretty interesting.
Well, when you're trying to win a championship, that certainly does become interesting. I coached for a long time, Ryan. And I remember players that we would lose, and they had a good game. They were really happy. They didn't care. They had a good game. That's all that mattered. Maybe there's a bit of that in Jaylen. The interesting thing, though, would be what could Boston get for him? And what could Jaylen Brown do for another franchise as an impact player, as the guy? That would be interesting. So I am curious to see what kind of deals, because, and I'm curious in your take on this, the way players are being traded now, like the Giannis trade, those kind of deals are fewer and further in between. And if this doesn't pan out in Miami, this could be the last of them, because people go, why are we giving up our future for a broken down guy who's playing 40 games this year and isn't ready for the playoffs again, which really has been the trend in Giannis's career. So when you get guys in their early 30s that are starting to have chronic year after year problems, you're taking a big gamble and you're giving up so much. And that is, in turn, my last thought would be, that's why you have the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's what they did. And look what they turned it into, as opposed to the trades going out and what they turned into.
Yeah, no, I agree, Paul, for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's that. There's the fact that the first round picks seem to be more valuable now because there's a bigger chance that it's a high pick because of the lottery changes. That they kind of like a lot of these picks that you knew were kind of going to be end of the lottery or even into the 20s. Now there's a chance that they're much higher than that with all the new convoluted rules. So teams might be more hesitant to throw them into packages. The other thing is, like with Giannis, you were saying, like how many of these big guys that have played so many minutes early on are still dominant for years to come? Like, this is a huge risk for Miami. Like Shaquille O'Neal, he's a different category, but he's like a wrecking ball like Giannis. He was never the same guy after a bunch of years. You know, his last good years were in Miami, and then it kind of fell off a cliff. Even Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan, two of the all-time greats, who took great care of themselves. Eventually, like, they weren't the same guy. Like, is Giannis really going to be the same guy? That's the question I have. And then, yeah, just like they kind of remind me like Miami when they formed that super team and they had no depth and they lost to Dallas and it was a big upset, but they had no shooting at all, like kind of like this team. And they had just gone so hard to get LeBron and Bosh to give with Dwayne Wade that they had nothing else. And it took them till that second year before they were able to kind of figure out ways to add the pieces. And I wonder if that's going to be the same thing with this kind of Giannis Bam Adebayo super team. If it's going to take them like at least a year before they have the ability to kind of give them the pieces they need to really be as good as on paper people are expecting.
It's going to be interesting. Of course, you never count Pat Riley or Eric Spoelstra out of any equation, but I think Eric's going to have some extra chili sauce in the mix this year to make this really, really come together, as talented as Giannis has been. Ryan Wolstat, Toronto Sun, final question. This is kind of out of left field. Why in the world would Minnesota and Charlotte make that trade?
Well, I get it a little more for Charlotte because it kind of speaks to what we've been talking about throughout this conversation about guys that are a little different sometimes. You don't want to bank on them. We'll put it that way. And LaMelo is a different cat. He's a different guy. He's extremely talented. And that kind of contradicts what I said because that was one guy the Raptors were going to take a chance on a swing. They love, from what I've heard, they really like this guy. They have for years, and they were kind of willing to take a swing on a guy like that versus a guy like John Moran, who's a different kettle of fish altogether. Like LaMelo's a
do not touch
player.
That's the sign over Jaws thing is do not touch this. This one's not going to work, guys.
No, it's different. Like he can't shoot, and LaMelo's a great shooter. It's just the problem with LaMelo is he takes the craziest shots in the world, pretty much. Like, and if he could ever rein that in, he'd be awesome. I think Charlotte realized they were never going to get him to rein it in. They thought they had enough with some of the other guys. They could replace a bit of it with Kobe White and have a bunch of more money to spend, and that's why they did it. I think they just wanted to. Also, he's been injured a lot.
Yes.
That was part of it. So that's why they did it. For the Wolves, I think they are really worried that Anthony Edwards is going to go home to Atlanta down the line, and they're doing everything possible. They're throwing things at a wall and hoping it sticks. I know they're friends. They were in the same draft class. They were both in the running to go first overall that year. Like, so I think they're hoping that this somehow works and gives them an insane backcourt, and it keeps Edwards there longer. So that's my best explanation for that. But it was an interesting one for sure.
Well, and I think with Minnesota, they've made some interesting choices, giving up the house for Rudy, and people have thrown a lot of bricks at him saying that's crazy. And in a lot of ways it was, but they got to 2 conference finals. Mm-hmm. And so, you say in its own weird, disconnected way, it kind of worked. But now with Edwards, you're right. Atlanta's ascendance now as an attractive franchise to play, led by an Edmontonian. By the way, it's going to be really interesting. This to me is baffling because if for no other reason, both Edwards and Ball are high usage players, and Ball is so frequently injured, and now Edwards is getting injured more often as well. Maybe that's part of the reasoning that if Edwards is going to play 50 or 60 games, and the same with LaMelo, at least you're going to have one of them for 50 or 60 games.
Yeah, maybe they had to make a splash, too, because it looks really bad that they gave away Karl Anthony Towns, who just helped the Knicks win the title. So they had to make a splash to kind of make people forget about that. So they basically get rid of Randall, who came back for Cat, and now they get LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, weird move. But the Eastern Conference certainly has taken over the headlines this week anyway, and I know coming up we're going to see a lot happening in the West, particularly what LeBron's next decisions are. Ryan, thanks so much for making time today. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great summer, And looking forward to talking with you in the fall when we get back and talking more Raptors.
For sure. Enjoy the break. Enjoy the summer.
All right. Ryan Wolstat, NBA Toronto Raptor writer for the Toronto Sun. Read his stuff. Ryan does such a phenomenal job. You go online and read his articles. When we take after this break, when we come back, we're going to say our goodbyes for this season. So thanks so much for joining us this morning, and I'm looking forward to our next segment as we wrap this season up here on Hoop City with Paul Sir, along with Josh Fenwick, on your sports leader, Sports 1440. Closing time, which it is, as our season comes to an end. And like everything, every season has to come to an end. And I want to spend this last segment focusing on why this was a very, very special season on Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440. Of course, Josh Fenwick, I'll start with you. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you this year, and I'm hopeful that when we come back in the fall, this works into your schedule as well. I know how busy you are, but love your energy, enthusiasm, knowledge, and willingness to go into the weeds to talk hoops with me.
Yeah, busy guy, sure, but I think I could squeeze out 2 hours a week for this.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I can squeeze out some time. I can work it in.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Josh.
I've had a lot of fun this year, Paul, and I'm looking forward to continuing our work together.
Absolutely.
Because we're only getting better.
Well, we are. And, I take a lot of pride in the fact that this started with the vision 11 seasons ago, of bringing a basketball exclusive program to the radio waves in this understandably hockey crazy market. But beyond that, I think what's been most gratifying about hosting this show is that with technology being as it is, YouTube, being on sports1440.ca, the kind of reach that we can have, we have listeners and viewers from all over now. And it's just so much fun, and being able to have the privilege, and it's interesting. I don't mind sharing my age. I'm 72 years old, and I've been around the game my whole life, and I honestly can say I enjoy talking about it as much today as I ever have in my entire life. I have enjoyed all of the eras I've been privileged, both as a player, as a coach, as a general manager, as a administrator. I've had such a great run in the sport of basketball, but I still enjoy talking about it as much today as I ever have. I do want to give acknowledgement to a number of really special people that I am very, very grateful for over the course of this past season. Kevin Carius, as you know, left the station yesterday, left Sports 1440. Moving on into retirement. My conversations with Kevin through the course of this year were always so much fun. You just really can't find a more enjoyable, affable, knowledgeable guy than Kevin. And I was always looked forward to our conversation. And by the way, I think the addition of Tom Gazzola as the morning host, wow, what a coup. That's fantastic. Tommy is just he's fantastic. Of course, I always love talking with Low Tide whenever he'd have me on. And a special thanks to Jason Greger, not only for the opportunity when Connor, Hallie, and he would have me on, but also for just the visionary that Jason is. I remember early on, and I don't know Jason that well on a personal basis, but what I know is he's one of the hardest working people, not just in the industry, but in any industry. And he's approached this relationship with Sports 1440 with such passion and zeal, and has assembled a first-class radio, sports radio lineup that delivers, I think, on a daily basis, something really special primarily to our community, but certainly, again, beyond because of technology's reach. So Jason Greger is just somebody really, really to be thanked, and I think in the Edmonton community. And it's not all that it's certainly not what he does in terms of running on the air. It's all that he does in the community that benefits so many people. So hats off to Jason Greger. And of course, Brandon, Declan, just fantastic young people that I just feel privileged to be around. And then also want to thank Marty and Susan from the Sports 1440 from the management here at the station. Such quality people doing a remarkable job in an era when much of traditional media is on a downward slide. It's been a slow, gradual, painful death for so many traditional media outlets, whether that's in print, on radio, on television, the consolidation, the advent of all of the different ways that people consume information, and the way that people consume information has changed so much. Yet in the midst of it, there's this diamond, and the sister stations of Sports 1440, the way they've been able to maintain the interest in the market and the connection to the marketplace is really something special for Edmonton, for anywhere. And Susan and Marty certainly deserve a lot of credit for that. I want to give a special acknowledgement to some of the guests that I've had the privilege to have on multiple times over the course of this year. And I'll start with Ben Golliver. Ben has become a friend ever since I met Ben in an elevator at the Las Vegas Summer League in 2016. And Ben consequently ran a story in Sports Illustrated, who we worked with at that time, about my son Steve, who at age 33 was playing with the Milwaukee Bucks in that Summer League. And Ben gave an acknowledgement to him. And since then, Ben's been on my show regularly and was on our show almost on a weekly basis through the first 3 quarters of the season, really. But then Ben he had been let go by the Washington Post. Shame on them, idiots that they were. But it was what was Ben being let go led to something bigger and better, as he's now one of the big NBA voices at ESPN. Always make time to read or listen to Ben Golliver. No one knows the sport better from the inside out, and there's not a higher quality person in the world that I've had the privilege to meet. Pat Boylan, the great voice of the Indiana Fever and the Indiana Pacers, always trying to find a way to make time for us, as is Alan Horton, the voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Alan and Pat have been on the show numerous times, generous with their time as well, but to be able to go courtside, to be able to go in the locker room with Ben, Alan, Pat, just fantastic. Just fantastic guests. Such a privilege to be able to bring that kind of insight and that kind of connection to what we're doing. And then, of course, Ryan Wolstat, who was just on. Ryan's been on with us many times. To have that Canadian voice, who I consider to be the most knowledgeable and what I think is wonderful, somewhat irreverent voice in a country that oftentimes tends towards being just the nice guy. Ryan's a very nice guy, but he speaks his mind, and he's really, really smart and really, really knowledgeable. At this time, too, I have to give a shout out to my wonderful wife of many, many decades, Sandra, who's put up with my obsession with the game of basketball throughout all these years. She sacrificed a lot for me to pursue this passion. I'm so proud of my sons. My son, Steve, still 19 years later, holding the NCAA record for three-point shooting percentage. 19 years. Think of that he's held this record for players making 300 or more three-pointers in their career, almost 2 decades. And now to continue on with great professional success in 5-on-5, then becoming Canada's top-ranked 3x3 player for many years, and now doing so well as the national team coach for Mongolia. In this last week alone, Mongolia's men won their Challenger in Ulaanbaatar, and the women won their women's series. This is a non-basketball country. Steve's leadership is instrumental to that. I'm proud of my son Sam and his wife Mallory, who are teachers in our school system. And of course, my son Ethan, who was an All-Canadian at Concordia. Sam played for me at Concordia, was a great player too. Ethan was All-Canadian, now a wildly successful stand-up comedian who's doing great, great things in that area. And of course, wrap up with the song that we're listening to now by Worst Days Down, written and performed by my son Ben in tribute to his friend David Finkelman, who lost his life at an intersection due to the careless driving of someone and Ben paid tribute to him. And then we lost Ben just over 3 years ago as he battled trauma and addiction. No kinder soul. He suffered, but all through it all, Ben was kind to others, did many, many things for many, many people who had less than nothing going in their lives to try to help them. And my message all year, and thank you for listening. Be kind to others. We aren't walking a mile in our brother or sister's shoes, so always be kind. Think the best of others. And the people in your life that you love, make sure that you tell them that you love them. I wish Ben was here right now for me to tell him how much I love him. To all of you that have listened all year long, it has been an absolute pleasure and privilege and honor to be with you every week. Josh, thank you once again.
Thank you, Paul. The year's been a riot. Looking forward to next year already.
Same here. You've been listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir on your sports leader, Sports 1440.